Okay, you do roll call?
Who does roll call? Do I do it?
Or, oh, I don't know, Heather usually does it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Mr. Silva,
Here,
Mr. Guy, absent, McGowan and Ms. McGowan,
Here.
Mr. Winterhalter.
Here.
Yes, is it Mr. Weiner?
He's absent.
He's absent. I just was making sure it was a Mr. I don't think I've met him either. Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Your manager and your engineer here.
okay, thank you. We'll start with a moment of silence and then we will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have any comments on the agenda, anybody?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Public comment? How come we have those on the list now? The request, the public comment on agenda? We never used to have that. Number 5,
Why, you don't want to hear from the public?
I'm just,
I was kidding. Okay.
If there's something on your agenda that's not necessarily a project, you would hear it now versus hearing it during the land development project being presented.
what is that? Oh, okay. Okay, just curious.
So, and so somebody could comment on something at this point, even though it's, if they wish to, ahead of time.
That's fine. Any public comment on the agenda? And then we have minutes suggested for approval for July 27th. Do you have any comments on those minutes?
No comments. Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the minutes of July the 27th, 2023.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Approved. So we have next up, Subbio Land Development. And if I can just, before you start, we have 2 sets of plans, one 817 and I assume the 817 are the ones we should look at.
So the 2 sets of plans might be the land development plan and landscape plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They both say site plan on the top.
Okay, and the plan would be the 817 plan.
I think the 817 they submitted last Friday, which I believe are in response to the last review letter I had issued.
One without the color green in the corner.
I think you should probably look at the 817 plans for this discussion. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Scott Deisher with JMR Engineering. I am sitting in for Jack Robinson, who was here in front of you guys last time. He had another planning commission meeting this evening. So this project is located along Westchester Pike at the intersection of Row Lane. The applicant is proposing to consolidate 2 parcels and is proposing a medical facility. There'll be a couple of additions onto the one building, and the main change on the site is that they will be providing an access driveway between the 2 existing parking lots. Since the last submission and plans that you guys have seen, the driveway has been widened to 20 feet based upon comments from the fire marshal. And additional landscaping has been provided along the property lines and within the site to meet ordinance requirements. There is a few waivers that they will be requesting from those requirements. We do have the architect and the landscape and designers here this evening. So they will be going through the landscaping design and can answer any questions on that. I guess as far as the engineering letter goes from Benoni, the most recent submission was basically a will comply with all of the comments. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to kind of go through that yet, or if you have any feedback on any of the revisions.
Yeah, so, yeah, I've gone through, the most recent plans, compared to the letter, and I think most of the items seem to have been addressed. I didn't go in great detail. But really at this point, most of the comments I had were just technical details in the plans, with labeling information. So the one, item, which in the letter has to do with the buffering, the screening, the landscaping, was kind of the last item, that I would have that, you know, I guess, you can probably go through, I guess, we're at the Shade Tree Commission and then also discuss the buffer.
Yeah, so the landscape architects are Black and Thomas Panzak, and they went to the Shade Tree Commission meeting that was just before this, and I believe it was conditional approval that you guys received. So there was some species of trees that they would like to change, but in general, they were on board with the proposed landscaping design. And I guess as far as landscaping goes, if you guys have any specific questions, it would be.
And if you wish, I can give you a quick update on, from them, the things that they had asked for as potential conditions on their end related to this project.
That would be helpful.
So do you want that now, or do you want that later?
Do it now.
Yeah.
While we're on
Do
it,
it now.
So they did approval on the following conditions that would be met. One is the review by the township arborist, and they would meet any requirements that the township arborist had. Compliance with section 158 -10, which I believe has to do with the requirements related to trees on land development, including, and then underneath that, including meeting the replacement trees requirements in the plan. They took, I believe that on the plan, it actually reduced the number of tree requirements based on trees that were natives versus non-natives. And so the non-natives, they were not going to replace for, and the Shade Tree Commission said that our ordinance does not allow for that. And so they're recommending those be replaced. Any trees that cannot be replaced on the site then would be expected to pay fee in lieu of to the tree fund. And then finally, the recommendation of, and they'll probably bring this up, but there's a tree at the corner of the lot, which would be the southwestern corner, that, yes, thank you. That's a maple tree that's there. In order for them to put the sidewalk in, they would have to remove that tree. So what the Shade Tree Commission was saying is that they would put the sidewalk in except for that very last section, and then leave the tree, because it's a sidewalk that doesn't go anywhere at this point. In other words, the sidewalk doesn't go the rest of the way down Row. And my guess is it would be a while until that happens, based on the fact that it's a single home that's on the other side of that. And so, but they would then contribute to a fund for the sidewalk so that we would have it when and if that ever does happen. Is that a fair?
I guess, Vern Panzak, Black and Thomas Panzak. Behalf of the applicant, I guess the only caveat I would mention is that it wasn't native versus non-native. It was invasive versus a regular old tree. And the trees that we were highlighting were dead, diseased, or dying trees, or invasive trees. So I think we left the Shade Tree meeting an hour ago. We looked at the ordinance once again, and I think there may be some discrepancy between Shade Tree's interpretation of that particular piece versus our interpretation. And all we would want to do is to review that with the arborist or whoever is, relevant to that particular ordinance section. We believe in the code, it gives you grace for the invasive and dying trees. Shade Tree didn't think that was the correct interpretation. So, I think we can navigate that with the arborist or whoever we need to navigate that with. But, we are in agreement with the other conditions. So, and we're here to answer questions or give you a brief presentation, but, if that's necessary, we're happy to do it.
On your, in the plans, there's a plant list. So I'm just sort of moving forward, like if we were to make a motion, is there any change to that other than the fact that you would keep the maple tree on the corner? We sort of discussed a lot of detail that, we don't have a document that we can refer to the supervisors.
Right.
So
If we were to go to the next plan.
yeah, I'm on L2 of L.
Yes, exactly. The plant list includes a plant called a London plane tree, a Morton's Circle London plane tree. I did talk to Mr. Hosback this morning, and he said that he didn't have a complete have enough time to review the plan in total. He doesn't have a review letter. But he did say for me to mention that he would be happy to work out the details with us. I communicated that to the Shade Tree Commission as well. And we are in agreement that that certainly can happen. One comment that John had was, and the Shade Tree, was that the street trees that we selected may be ultimately too large for that space, given that there is a power line in that area along Westchester Pike. We're completely happy to modify the plan accordingly. And I think there's an arborvitae specified. We thought that there was good reason to specify that plan because of some shade tolerance that some of the trees on the approved list did not have. And they are located along the buffer area. And, our plan was to beef up the buffer area in areas where there were gaps that exist today. We were saving as many of the existing trees along that border as we possibly could, and then infilling in between. So the Shade Tree Commission asked us to substitute the arborvitae species, which again, we're happy to do, and we'll work out the details with Mr. Hosbach. And then there was discussion about this tree over here. So I think that kind of summarizes where we were with the conditions.
And then so essentially, it sounds like you have a will comply response to the Pannoni letter for the most
Yes.
part.
Yeah, we will work with Eric on any.
And then you mentioned there was a waiver they're gonna need. or-
So there is
Walk through
the
that.
landscaping requirements. There is a couple waivers that they are requesting from those requirements, if you would
Yeah.
like to discuss them.
Yeah. And the waiver, we've got an existing, essentially, this is an existing condition, with the exception of a building addition here, a little bit there, and a little bit there. And the connecting driveway that will connect this parking lot to that parking lot. But all of this exists, all of that exists. This building is here, that building is there. So when we did all of the calculations that are found on LP1, we found that there simply isn't room to place all of the plant material on the site. And that's where, we had, where the Shade Tree Advisory asked for the fee in lieu of the plant material that is unable to be placed on the site. And, one of the big areas was this primary buffer area where, there's landscape materials that are required along that line. There's only a matter of 3 or 4 feet there between the existing parking and the property line. What we're suggesting is that there be a proposed 6-foot solid fence put in there, which will improve that property line edge. It will mitigate, car headlights and things like that in the winter time. So we are asking for a waiver of requirement of landscaping along that buffer line. We've got all of the buffer material in here. There is a small requirement for an accessory structure, which we've complied with. And there's another buffer requirement here. It's called the secondary buffer. And there really is very little space to plant along that area. This is a driveway on the adjacent property, and this is our parking area. And one thing I would point out is that we do show on the plan a proposed 6-foot solid fence along that property line. That was an oversight. We didn't intend that fence to be put on the plan. And the reason being is that this is such a narrow area. We didn't think sort of breaking these two properties up with a fence, because this is a commercial property here and another commercial property there. We just didn't think that was necessary at that point. And so we're asking for a waiver of the secondary buffer material along that property line. For that reason, the lack of space. We do have an existing large linden tree here and a large Zelkova tree here, and several arborvitae that already do exist there. So that was another waiver request for plant material.
Was that 2 total waivers?
The last one was for the parking. I believe it was a partial waiver to provide 6 trees, including 4 existing due to its space limitations for parking area.
Right, and there's a parking area requirement for trees, and with the space given here, we are providing 2 additional parking lot trees, and we've got 4 existing trees that we counted toward that. But yes, it was so the waiver would be the requirement's 9. We've got 6, so it would be a waiver of 3 trees. I think we say, we're proposing 2, so the waiver would be for 3.
What would go in between your property and the one to the right, where you said there wasn't enough space and that's a commercial use? So what are you proposing to put there?
We're proposing that line be unchanged.
Okay,
Essentially, this area of the site, there's almost no impact visually. We are putting a driveway in here, but the visual continuity remains exactly how it is today, other than that new driveway. There's
and
a
then where the
parking
trees are along that angled area,
here.
is there a fence there as well?
In here?
Yes.
There's actually an existing garage from an adjacent property, which is right on the property line,
Okay,
right here. We're adding evergreen tree material here as well as some deciduous shrubs, which is the way the ordinance requests that the buffer be designed. And then we've got existing white pines that run from this point to this point. There's a volunteer willow tree right at this location that's fairly large that we felt needed to be removed in order to install the stormwater management feature that's right in this location. So once the willow is removed, we would be adding, what we had was the arborvitae plant, which we will substitute with whatever the arborist feels is the appropriate evergreen piece right there. And then we've got an existing large deciduous shrub that's remaining and two more white pine trees that will remain. We've got these are two holly trees here. There's a holly tree there. And there were a couple of additional arborvitae in that buffer where gaps currently exist. So all of that will be densely vegetated at the end of the day.
So if we grant a waiver and Eric, or I don't know who this question's for, maybe if we grant the waiver on the between the two commercial buildings and there's existing vegetation that is the current barrier, does the waiver then nullify the need to keep that existing barrier there? If that question makes sense. So there's existing shrubbery between the two commercial buildings now. We
Correct.
say, hey, we'll grant the waiver for that.
I think what you would do is you would grant the waiver for additional plantings as required
Okay.
by our code, not grant the waiver to take down what's there. Like you.
Yeah,
wouldn't-
yeah,
I think that's what you're asking. me.
correct.
Yeah.
I would be
Yeah.
specific enough.
I think that's
just
what
to-
you were getting at too.
I think I would be specific enough just to say we would recommend with the waiver only for the additional plantings.
Yeah.
Right, and it would be our intention to retain
Sure.
all of the existing material
Yeah.
along this secondary.
Fence here.
The fence is still proposed in the back.
The fence would be proposed from
For
this
that
corner,
section.
yeah.
So it's fence, trees,
And then shrub.
and then some form of shrubbery that it already exists.
I believe
Say that again.
arborvitae's.
So I'm going left to right on the screen
Okay.
and I'm going
Yeah.
fence,
Fence.
then the angled portion is
All right.
trees
Yeah.
with some existing and some little full coverage, no fence.
Shrubbery, no fence. There actually is an existing fence that migrates onto the adjacent property that I guess there's a little
Contribution.
confusion as to ownership of that. So we would propose that fence would remain in here. So that would be in addition to the buffer landscaping that we're proposing.
Okay,
We're not proposing new fencing from this point to that point, but there is an existing fence that we're considering keeping because it does sort of migrate along the property line.
Scott, what else do you have?
Any other questions you guys have?
Any public comment? I think the public's all with you. I'm asking.
Yeah, the only question I have, and we're looking it up right now, that the distance from what I would call the angled back line between the two parking lots, basically, where you're putting in the roadway. Does that, I understand that we have a pre-existing condition of the buffering, but because you're putting in the roadway, does that distance between the property line and the roadway maintain your buffer requirement? You follow what I'm saying?
You're talking about a distance?
I'm saying, so you have a buffering requirement that we think that you're okay with, because this is pre-existing and this is pre-existing.
Right.
This is new.
Right.
Is this outside of that buffer. You follow what the question is that I'm asking?
I guess you're, yeah, I would have to look if there is a specific buffer distance.
Well, there's a rear yard right here of
I mean, wouldn't there just be?
But I think
And
there's a
we're-
buffer between commercial and this is residential property here.
Right.
I know that this is
Yeah, that one's
commercial,
different.
Yeah.
but this is residential here. So my question is this buffer being maintained? Or are you encroaching into that buffer? And then my question would be, does that now,
I see your, I understand. your
It's a
question.
distance issue that you're.
Yeah.
I'm raising a distance.
It's not a vegetation.
It's not a vegetation issue.
That's
I'm,
right.
I'm not looking at all of the
Right.
vegetation.
Right.
I just happened to look at this and we started talking about buffer.
Right.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
You may have a variance required for that section. And I just want to make sure that you all understand that there's a possibility that that's an issue. I'm looking at.
We've got 15 feet, which is, this driveway is completely out of the rear yard setback.
Yeah, I do see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's just an issue of the buffer.
Right.
Are you questioning whether the buffer can be in the rear yard?
He just wants to make sure that our proposed driveway is within the buffer distance. Like if the buffer distance is 25 feet and the edge of our driveway is at 20 feet, then yeah, then you're within that buffer. But if we're outside that buffer, then, then we're okay.
And the answer is?
I am trying.
Eric's looking it up.
As fast as I
And we are as well. So
Okay.
I just wanted to.
My phone is not cooperating.
What happens when I don't have the zoning officer here?
This kind of gets complex because you have the existing vegetation, and you don't want to tear it all out. But then you also have fences that are new and all,
Yeah.
admittedly awkward, but it's tough. I think you let it go, but I understand the complexity of it.
Yeah, we've had a few do the Uno CVS, there was a lot of issues
Yeah.
there. The existing conditions were not good and ultimately. Everything was moving in a positive direction, but wasn't necessarily what you would design.
Yeah. So
Sure,
I don't really have a problem with it, just maintain, like, I don't want to grant a waiver, and then they don't have to. They can just wipe it out and don't have to do anything.
Right. Yeah,
You know
we're
what I
just
mean?
not making them put more.
Yeah.
Tommy, do you know what the distance is? To that? It's 8 and 20 feet. So the rear yard setback line's 15 feet. It looks like it's like a couple feet off that.
It varies, it's probably
Yeah, he's right.
17, 18.
Yeah.
In the closest spot right here. Here, it might be 20.
Yeah, find it.
Yeah, I'm calling her solicitor.
Not find it in Zoom.
You're just looking to confirm.
Yeah. I see different setbacks for buildings from residential within the C1, but I don't see. find the lands. What section? Do you remember a section?
Well, I anticipate that we're not gonna find that answer immediately.
It's entirely possible that I don't think he just wants to confirm. I'm not sure if there
Yeah, I don't know.
is
that
a
there
buffer
is.
issue, or just, I think he just wants to confirm.
So maybe to your point, if there is a variance, then what? If there's not,
If they get a variance subject to the same
so
plan.
maybe if Eric were to continue to look and we can continue on with the meeting.
If the plan changes, then they
Yeah.
go back.
If they need some kind of modification, they can come back to us. If they
Right.
don't need the modification,
Yeah.
we'll anticipate that they don't need it. We'll move on.
So,
But I think there wasn't anything in that one location, and now we're moving it. Okay.
Everybody else is down.
He's looking it up, and he will call us right back. So I think if we can go through everything else, we'll get an answer on that, and we'll at least be able to tell you whether you'd want to say that they have to meet a zoning requirement or not, and that was just the other thing.
So let me ask you another question.
Sure.
Okay, rather than this issue. There was a question about the fire apparatus turning radius. Do you recall that at all?
So I know that the fire marshal had some comments, and I believe that it was with the width of the proposed driveway, which previously was 14 feet.
in
And
the
that has
back,
been
the
widened.
Angle part.
Yeah, the back, the angled part. The part that we're proposing was originally proposed as 14 feet and was expanded to 20 based upon that comment.
Does that satisfy his need for his dual axle or whatever it is? Yes?
Yes, and we do have his fire truck, routed through that on our.
Okay.
It's on set.
I just didn't, in the papers I was reviewing in anticipation of this meeting, I didn't see if that was adjusted, and I don't think I had the August 17th plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that roadway, we wanted that roadway at 14 feet. We didn't really want it at 20 because that's additional stormwater, that's additional impervious. But that was what he had requested, so. That's why that roadway is wider.
I think at the back of the engineering set, you do have all the turning radius.
There's a truck turning plan.
Yeah, it's on 7/10.
And have you received Delaware County Planning Commission approval for this project?
We submitted to the planning commission. Do they approve plans? Just
Or do we
county
get a
doesn't
comment
approve
letter?
plans. They just review and provide a
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah, the meeting date was 7/20, I thought, but I didn't see anything after that.
Yeah, I have not received anything. To be honest.
Did it go to them late or did they miss a month or? I mean, usually we get their comment letters.
I do not know the answer to that question. But do you know when you submitted that? to the
Yeah.
county? Was it with the land development set?
Here it is.
Typically, we
I
submit
did
on the
find it
first
today.
edition.
Let's see. I have a letter acknowledging receipt. Stating the meeting was going to be July 20th. That's the only document I have.
Yeah, so we have not received a review letter. To my knowledge, again, I'm not the design engineer on this one, but. I did not see that in the.
When would you, if this board were to approve this evening, when would you anticipate going before the Board of Supervisors for approval?
I think that we would go as quick as we could, we'll get the plan revised and back to Eric for review, we have to, I guess meeting all the review requirements would be a portion of the revolution or the resolution. Depending upon the outcome of this meeting, I guess we would try and get there as soon as we can.
Like you'd have to meet with Hosback and get his tree compliance issues done, and then you'd have to get your letter from the planning commission, find out where that is.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be an issue. We should get that, by the end of this week, I would hope, if they reviewed it this week, so.
Well, 7/20.
Yeah.
It's a month.
Yeah,
ago.
that's a month
ago.
That's why we're shaking our head or
Yeah.
scratching our heads.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Where is
Need
that?
to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
We should have a letter then.
I mean, they would send it to us to Township, so.
Yeah, I'm actually looking to see if we got it and I don't see it yet.
Well, we can make a motion to approve subject to the.
Yeah.
Got it.
A lot of loose ends.
Yeah,
If we do get there, this is one for you. We all have our unique abilities.
Yeah.
That's not mine. I'm just waiting for
He's Rich said he.
I thought he was calling to see to move the wash into the dryer. Can you move?
It looks like we found a 25-foot requirement in the saldo, which would be an addition. And not a variance, but let's see what,
Would be a what?
it looks like it's a
Additional waiver.
requirement of the
Just another
saldo
waiver.
landscaping. Yeah, so let's see what.
yeah.
To manage through it, but. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Want to be going. Turning an hourly rate.
Yeah, fair.
So just so we're all on the same page, I did talk to our solicitor. It's in section 104. It is under the buffering section. It requires a 50-foot buffer. Obviously, you're not going to be able to make that by putting in the roadway. But because it's under section 104, it's under the land development side, it could be recommended as a waiver of that 50 feet in addition to the plantings. And so it doesn't have to go to zoning.
And that's a 50-foot buffer
50 foot.
Between the residential
property line
and the commercial property. And in that case, it couldn't
and the
happen.
commercial building,
Yes,
so the improvements. So
The
you could,
improvements.
needs a, okay.
Yeah. so the roadway would be considered part of the improvement.
Would be considered part of the 50 feet
It
then.
would be considered. part
So
of
they
the-
have 15 plus 20 at least. So they're,
We
No,
are
no, the
approaching
roadway would be the roadway could not be in the buffer.
Oh, that would have to be outside. the
Yeah,
50.
so they're not going to be able
They're
to.
not even.
No.
We're not even.
No, so that's why they need a waiver of that.
Yes.
And they have a pre-existing condition, which, which is fine. But because they're doing that, I just want to make sure we're clear that we're also waiving that buffer requirement.
50 feet would be approximately where the edge of this building is.
Right.
Right, that's what you checked, right?
but the parking area is in that, or
Yeah.
the driveway. is
Yeah,
in
it's
that.
just all,
Yeah, so.
just pre-existing.
So it's pretty much pre-existing, but I think because they're doing it, we just need to be clear on the plans and from the township's perspective that we're waiving that requirement in that location.
I think it could be said that, the driveway is no more invasive than the pre-existing,
Correct.
parking areas.
Not increased.
But I just think you should make that part of of the requested waivers.
So have you been doing a lot of work to lead us on?
Yeah, yeah. I was already motivating him.
Okay. Do we have any more
There we
comments
go.
or questions?
See this one.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion for the planning commission to recommend to the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to approve the proposed land development application being presented on behalf of Subbio Real Estate LLC, last dated August 17, 2023, seeking authorization to consolidate two adjacent parcels into one parcel. The applicant proposes to construct building additions which will join the two existing buildings, connect two existing parking lots via a driveway to the rear lot, modify parking spaces to provide accessible parking, and I don't believe they are going to install a new fence along the back. I think they're going to retain the existing fence.
We will also install a new
There's
fence.
a new
There'll be a new
fence.
fence
Correct.
installed.
Yes.
On the what?
Oh, on the rear, but one
Yes.
portion will stay.
Correct.
Okay.
One remains existing.
It will be further conditioned on compliance with the fire marshal's review letter last dated July 10, 2023, and reaching an agreement with the township arborist with regard to certain tree replacements. And will be,
August 21 is the last.
oh, August 21, not July the 10th, but August 21st. So we got a new one. Thank you. It will be subject to what I believe will be 4 waiver requests. One waiver request is from the landscaping requirement as to the number of trees, reducing the number by 3 trees, if my notes are correct.
Yeah, that's what I have.
And there will be a fee in lieu. All of that, huh? Yeah. It would be a partial waiver to provide. Wait, we're gonna waive the fence though, aren't we? Aren't we waiving the fence requirement between the two
Two
lots?
properties, between the two properties.
Waiver of the landscaping buffer along the rear line and a secondary buffer along the side yard. We're waiving the 50-foot buffer, or recommending the waiver of the 50-foot buffer between the residential property line and the existing structure as a pre-existing condition. That, what else am I missing? Could you get the-
Delaware County.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do have that one too. That will be subject to your obtaining before you go before the Board of Supervisors, the confirmation of the Delaware County Planning Commission review letter, which strangely is not
Yeah,
here.
we should have that. I'll get that to you as quick as I can. That
Right.
exists somewhere.
But we would certainly recommend that be presented before you go before the Board of Supervisors, whenever that would be.
No problem. There was one more waiver, the waiver on our land development plans to go preliminary final.
Preliminary and final. I should have had that first and foremost, but yes, that we would recommend that waiver also.
You guys are too busy assisting.
You think we missed anything before we vote? Just checking, Kate.
I have one other quick question. I know I'm like throwing a wrench here at the last.
Sure.
Any change, have you gone through with the municipal authority related to sewer, any change in sewer capacity based on change in use of the building?
Have you? No, okay, same use. Yeah.
Excuse me? Okay. They're both office medical buildings, are just staying the same, and the additional square footage, does that change anything with that? I'm gonna incorporate. Okay.
And I think, as you indicated, you will comply with any of the conditions of the Pannoni letter
Correct.
dated July the 24th, 2023. I think your response actually acknowledged that, but
We've actually resubmitted plans, so he'll have another letter based upon those plans.
give a second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much.
All we got. Unless you have something, I'm doing motion to close.
The only thing I would suggest is items 8.1 and 8.2. If you're comfortable, we'll remove those from your agenda until, like, Garrett Williamson, my guess is probably multiple years from coming back in unless
Okay.
they have a fundraiser that just produces lots of funding so they can build that building.
Yeah.
And Sawmill Road, I know they're working through things. They may be back sooner than I think, but instead of having it on here every month that you're taking no action, I think it's been on here 3 months with no action. I'm recommending you take them off.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. Okay, do we have a motion to close?
Motion.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.